Hello and welcome back to another video for Final Fantasy XIV with me, Meoni. This time, of course, another episode of Tea Time with Meoni, where I get to sit back and talk to you guys as if you were live here with me. Only this time we're going to be talking, well, basically about a bunch of stuff, mostly to do with the channel and upcoming projects and all that sort of stuff. So firstly, it's very important to tell you that I'm now on my brand new computer. This is something that I've waited for many, many years, and frankly, I could not be happier with it. I've put it through the paces this last week, just as a little bit of a test, and it crushes pretty much everything I throw at it. But that's, going to happen anyway, judging by the specs that I went with. A lot of you told me it was complete overkill, and, it was, basically, for its time. So, where to begin? I suppose I should really share what the specs are of this machine and go from there, really. I mean, we've got a 1200 watt Asus ROG 4 power supply, which is 80 plus platinum, powering basically inside a chassis of a Leonly 011 Dynamic XL, which is the white version, by the way, for added reflection of all of those RGBs. We've got obviously the Corsair lighting Node Pro in there, basically giving you full addressability of that RGB. I am a fan of RGB, I know, I'm sorry. In the heart of this then, we've got an AMD Ryzen Threadripper 32 core, which is giving us 64 threads of power. And this is a 3970X running at, I think, about 4.5 gigahertz. We then have ourselves a series of Fantex 120 black fans, which are RGB as well. They're 120 millimeter fans. We actually have two sets of those, so we've got 6 of those in total inside, giving us a clear airflow through the case. We've got ourselves an RTX 2080 Ti, which we'll have to talk about in a moment, which is obviously the Asus one. We have ourselves 2 Corsair Force MP600 series, 2TB NVMe Gen 4 solid-state drives built into the motherboard there, slotted in, which are providing us both a boot drive of 2 terabytes and, of course, a secondary drive of another 2 terabytes, which is really nice and means really quick, instant loading for gameplay. Also means that recording stuff is being recorded to somewhere stable and it's quite nice and fast, so there's less likelihood of that corrupting. I've had that problem in the past where I've tried to record with Shadowplay and OBS and stuff onto a physical hard drive that isn't a boot drive, and it basically went crazy. But thankfully with an SSD, well, an NVMe SSD, those things are, of the past. Calling the Threadripper, we have a Cooler Master Master Liquid ML360. This has got a little bit of RGB on that, but it's a 360 millimeter cooler. This is an AIO, obviously with its own radiator and 3 fans, which are side mounted near the front of the case. We've got ourselves obviously a TRX 40. This is the Aorus Extreme motherboard. There was really no reason to go for this other than I wanted the extra distance between the PCIe slots, mostly in anticipation of future stuff such as the 3000 series. And judging by NVIDIA's announcement video yesterday, I'm quite glad that I did go for a motherboard like this. It's a lot more spread out and does have a lot of features that I would like to tinker around with. Not necessarily that I need, but it would be nice to have. And obviously I do want to have something else in the PCIe slot. And RTX 30 series does look, the 3000 series does look like those cards are thick. They're thick boys, and it's likely that they will take up nearly 3 PCIe slots of space. So I'm glad that I went for this motherboard in particular. Then, of course, we have ourselves some RAM. We've got 128 gigabytes of 3600 megahertz in a quad series, obviously, of Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro. I did actually order 3200 megahertz, but they gave me 3600 megahertz, which was pretty awesome because they had run out of stock, and I didn't have to pay any extra, which is amazing. And we've got that stuff on an XMP profile, and it is nice. And, well, good. It's smooth. It runs really, really well. We're obviously doing a small overclock on the RAM, and we're doing a small overclock on the CPU. And so far, we're having a good time. We're absolutely crushing videos. So the way this is in comparison, there's a few things I need to mention. A, what was the need of me purchasing a system with a 2080 Ti when I knew that there was going to be a 3000 series card soon, which I do not regret, by the way. The other thing was what was the need of a computer here and now, and also has it actually achieved what I wanted it to? So firstly, I know for a fact a lot of people are going to be wondering, well, why would you go for a 2080 Ti and spend that amount of money when the 3000 series, you know, we've just had the announcement yesterday that a 3070, okay, which is the new bottom rung, let's say, of the next levels of cards from NVIDIA, will be more powerful than a 2080 Ti for, what was it, $499 or something? That's really cheap, dude. So less than half the price of a 2080 Ti currently for essentially much better power and a much faster card. Well, the thing is, I wanted something that would be good now, that would be able to be used for many other applications in the future, but also I do have, obviously, my other rig. Now, I want to use that as a bit of a workhorse as well, meaning that I can retrofit that up to standard. I do need to replace parts on that, obviously, and we will be trying to salvage that as part of a side project. So putting a 2080 Ti in that is no problem if I do end up getting a 3000 series card, which is obviously the ultimate goal, since it will be faster. I don't feel any sort of buyer's remorse in the slightest, mostly because the second point, that I needed a computer now. I didn't need, I didn't have the time to wait for this. Everything was starting to go wrong. A previous computer was not having a good time. We need to replace the motherboard. We need to replace the CPU. There's a whole bunch of other components that would go with that replacement, obviously, because we'd have a whole different chipset to go with. We'd go probably for a B550 or something like that, a very cheap setup for the other PC. But and then people might be asking why I didn't just do that now and save money. Well, essentially, I wanted something that would actually increase the productivity, not just as a direct replacement of that machine, but also increase the productivity of the channel, allow me to do 4K video like I'm doing right now at 60 frames per second, which is obviously one of the things I've never been able to do before, but also, have faster videos out to you when there is patch cycles, when there's heavy stuff to cover, like as you saw with 5.3. If I had my PC, then we would be, having even more videos out when it was relative. Now things are starting to calm down a little bit. We're sort of in that medium lull again, leading towards patch 5.31 with the Ishgard restoration, and then there's going to be patch 5.35 in like October or something, right? At the earliest. So really, I needed something here and now. That was the first thing. But then, I was saving up all these years anyway. It had reached a point where I only needed another month or so to get what I wanted. And with the generosity of people donating and Patreon and the rest of it, we managed to achieve that goal. And I decided to go for some components that were basically overkill for what I needed, because then I can future-proof around that. Not necessarily future-proof, but at least for about 5 years. Yeah, that's the goal. And obviously upgrade along the way. Which is why I went for stuff like the Aorus Extreme and, a Threadripper and things like that. I know for a fact that I can get the maximum amount of performance out of this Threadripper because of how many videos I make. A lot of people will say, well, why didn't you go Intel? Because the i9-9900 is way better at Adobe encoding and stuff like that. Well, essentially, this was something I also looked into. It ultimately came down to a very marginal difference. I've always wanted a Threadripper, mostly for other applications and other projects I have in the future. Which I don't want to share at this time, but we will be looking into other things which do require that many cores and that many threads as a result of that. Yeah, honestly, I have no buyer's remorse at all. I feel that this is a frankly beautiful and very well-running system. It runs cool. It doesn't run hot. The fans do ramp up crazily when I set this into a render, but that's to be expected because we're getting the full force out of that. It's a lot of fun. I couldn't be happier, and really I didn't want to turn this into too much of a tech episode, but it does what I wanted. I feel that I have deserved this because I've worked quite hard to work towards this. It's not been fully through donations and things like that. However, that has obviously been a huge lifesaver and time saver overall. But I've put a lot of work into the YouTube channel, and I've obviously now streaming as well and bits and pieces. So I feel that it's only going to make the project and the channel much greater by reinvesting that sort of money into it. Now, as regards to money, we are looking over £6,000, close to £7,000. And yeah, like I say, no buyer's remorse, even though the 30,000 series, you know, the 3080, 3090 looks ridiculous by the way that they announced the other day. I won't bore you too much with tech stuff. That's more of my small interest. But yes, I'm looking forward to seeing what the future this brings for both ray tracing and other elements as well. But as regards to Final Fantasy XIV, then I'm pretty much caught up with a lot of things. There's a few things I still have yet to cover. There'll be a lot of housing videos and things like that, but there's a lot of really cool projects we have planned as well, externally from just the typical, this is new, this is an item, this is a change, that sort of stuff, or the news videos. We'll be delving back into machinimation and funny videos. This is something I used to really enjoy making, sort of little small machinimas, little shorts, as I used to call them, Meoni shorts. Yeah, I can't wait to get back into that stuff. We've already started filming one of the new projects, which I don't really have much time to share with you at now, but we've recorded the majority of that stuff, and we involved a large section of the community. You can join our Discord server. There's always a link to the Discord server, by the way, in the description of our videos. But we have essentially used whoever was around on Chaos Data Center at the time for that recording. And it was quite a lot of fun. We got some really good screenshots out of it, as well as some really, really good footage. And that will be used towards my next little video project. So hopefully people are looking forward to that. And yeah, thank you to everyone who did attend that. The other thing to notice is that you can take part in a lot of these events live with me on there, but you can also sometimes check those out on twitch.tv/Meoni. I do actually have quite a few of you have gone over and you follow me on there now and give me support there directly. I do appreciate obviously people coming from one platform to another to support their favorite content creators. It is really nice on Twitch, I can assure you, and quite surprising. It's been a very warm welcome. We managed to make affiliate on that within a few weeks, and that blew me away in itself. But we're over 2,000 followers now on Twitch, which is really cool, and I'm really enjoying it. There's a lot of really cool people on there that I like to involve myself with, and when we get like 100 or so people and we've finished like a 6-hour stream or something, we share that with the raid function, which is the ability to send viewers to other people, which is really, really cool. And you host their channel and they get very thankful about it, and it's very nice. It's very nice. It's a way of sharing the love and you know, supporting the Final Fantasy XIV community in a different way, which had not experienced before, because YouTube doesn't really have anything like that. It does make me feel that YouTube needs to step up its game in terms of live streaming tools, and especially when it comes to hosting and you know, gifting subs and things like that, and the raiding ability. That's all stuff that's now baked into my mind as, you know, fundamentals of making what Twitch as good as it is. So hopefully they take note of that. In terms of YouTube, I've really enjoyed myself, as you've probably noticed recently. There's been lots of really cool stuff. We've had a bit of negativity in the comment section, but that's ultimately as a result of the growth of the channel. I don't know if you've realized, but, you know, we are basically at 70,000 plus subscribers now, which which kind of blows my mind. It really does. I just don't know what to say to that, really. When I started this project all those years ago, I never dreamed that we would get to 70k. You know, I never dreamed that we'd get past 10k, let alone 70k. You know, it was always a pipe dream of watching these other YouTubers with their little 100k plaques put on the wall and stuff, and going, wow, that must feel really good. But this is the first time I think I've ever felt like this project could be on par with that, and we could reach such lofty goals. 100k is projected for next year, right? Sometime in July or something, or even August next year. So sort of this time next year, we might be sat on 100k subscribers, and that blows my mind. Now, obviously, we've tried to step up our game a little bit in terms of moderation tools. We actually have some moderators built into YouTube now that can actually deal with commenters, and if there's any abuse or harassment, they can actually flat out ban them, or hide them from a channel, or even remove their comments. So you might see some hostility in the comments due to the fact that we're growing now, and we do attract, unfortunately, a lot of really negative people. We do get a lot of really lovely people in the comment section, and it's 98% been great, but there's always that 2% of bad apples, and we're trying to do our best to keep the comment section and the rest of it, and especially the Discord and everything else, as part of this subset of the 14 community that we've managed to latch onto here, as nice as possible, you know. But for the most part, I really have little to do. I've got moderators on Twitch, for example. I've got moderators on YouTube. There's very little they have to do. It's quite surprising, but I'm very grateful for the support that I'm getting, and people, you know, putting up with the fact that I'm not always right, and the things I say sometimes need citations, and, you know, I don't always pronounce things correctly, and sometimes I jump to conclusions, and, you know, I'm a human at the end of the day, and frankly, I'm just sharing my passion that I have always had for this game with other people, and I've got even more outlets to do it now, which gives me great pleasure. It really does. I've never seen so many people just sort of go, hey, Meoni, I love your work, keep what you're doing, in both in comment sections and in the game. This is not something I'm used to, you know, sending messages in the game or directly to me on Discord or whatever. I don't always reply to people because I do go AFK quite a bit for recording and rendering, but when I do see them, I do try to respond as soon as I can. But yeah, I'm blown away by the love and support of everyone here, and 70,000 subs is kind of huge, especially if we consider that the game has been in 2.0 onwards is 7 years, right? We've got a 7th anniversary of the second version of Final Fantasy XIV. It's been 7 years. I've played all of those years, and now we're at 70k. So it's kind of fitting. Does that mean perhaps that I'm going to have to wait another year? Actually, it will be, won't it? So I'll probably end up hitting 80k subscribers next year in time for the anniversary, or will we beat the anniversary? I don't know. Anyway, regardless, it's silly numbers. It doesn't really matter to anybody, really. The only thing I really do want, guys, is the 100k plaque, mostly so I can stick it on the wall, and all of those people who said that YouTube is not a job and you shouldn't be doing this with your time and it's a waste of your energy, can suck it, basically. They can stare at the plaque, they can moan as much as they want, and I can just point at it and say, get out of here, you know? Just leave. Leave me alone forever. I'm loving what I'm doing. I do spend a lot of time doing it, and it's nice to finally see that we're reaching enough people that want to support us the way they do. Even in, you know, obviously down from viewership all the way to, you know, the unnecessary things, like the optional things like giving me money and things. It's not something I try to push for, but I'm blown away by the viewership. I really am. So anyway, soppy stuff aside, where I'm thanking you more times than I can even remotely try to thank you, what have we got coming up for Final Fantasy XIV that we're going to be covering. So apart from more funny videos and covering the rest of 5.3 stuff we still haven't covered because there's a ton to cover, I'm very grateful for Square Enix for putting so much in this patch. We have patch 5.31. As part of that, we're getting the new Ishgard restoration stuff, okay? So we're getting the new Sky Builder rankings. Last time around, I didn't really aim for a ranking, but I ended up getting Beta of a Firmament anyway for being in the top 100 for crafters, okay? That was accidental. That was just me basically leveling up crafters and doing too much of Diadem and having nothing to do with the materials, so I crafted with them and then turned them all in with expert recipes. It was something that I didn't really intend to do, and I still managed to get in the top 100. Now, I would imagine that this time around the competition will be much more fierce, especially on my data center when people realize how easy it was to get one of those titles. But at the same time, I will be trying, I think, a little bit harder this time, put a little bit more time into it, and see if I can get, you know, either the same sort of ranking or maybe a bit higher. That would be cool. A friend of mine got in the top 10 last time, and I'm like, wow, that's a really nice title. I think it's called Saint of the Firmament, and they're going with the same titles again this time around. It's just that the achievements that you're granted have basically a number 2 attached to their name, so it'll be whatever the achievement's called. I can't remember, number 2, but you'll still get the same title. So Saint or Saint of the Firmament or Beta of a Firmament or whatever the other variations are. So it's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, with new Ishgard Restoration does mean new rewards and new items, which I'm incredibly hyped for. Mainly because there's most likely going to be a mount associated with that. And there'll definitely be some glamour as well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of that stuff, and you'll be sure that I cover it in immense detail, because we're going to be obviously trying to get all of the stuff, and to get all of the stuff, then we obviously need to, you know, do our crafting stuff, and whilst I'm doing the crafting, I might as well submit some collectibles and work on the ranking. So, looking forward to that. I think it's, yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. But of course, you know, the next major thing that we're going to be looking forward to is patch 5.35, and that's, you know, sometime in October, maybe late October, something like that. Maybe early November at the latest, I would imagine. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to more information on that. That will be the Bosnian Southern Front, so basically Eureka 2.0. Speaking of Eureka, though, more recently, every Saturday we are going into Eureka. And we've been basically helping people for the past few months now. We started in Anemos as part of the Eureka From the Start project, which has been a massive success. You've probably seen some of the VODs or even live on Twitch or YouTube for the Eureka From the Start project. And we were in Anemos, we went into Pagos, and now we're finally, we're actually in the third instance, we're in Pyros. So this coming Saturday will be in September will be the second Pyros time we've been in there. We usually do 3 or 4 runs of somewhere each weekend, and then people do leveling in the week. We actually have a rank for that. If you're on Chaos Data Center, you can take part in that by just simply asking for the role. But we are going to be continuing in Pyros for our second week. And we're trying to get everybody a glowy weapon and hopefully a full set of glowy armor, but a lot of that is down to them doing logogram farming, okay, or purchasing the logograms, because that's how you get them. But for the most part, we're doing fate trains and grinding light together and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a huge success so far. It's really nice to be back in Eureka Pyros, of all places. And we have, about 70 to 80 people each time, give or take, depending on who can be around on that specific day. But like I say, there's people leveling up and getting elemental levels and working on more crystals and weapons during the week. And it's nice to see that Eureka is very much still alive and kicking. And we're only trying to add to that and trying to keep it as busy as possible. Eureka is a lot of fun, and it does make me feel quite happy to see people finding time to invest in that and try it for a second time, because a lot of the people I'm taking through said originally that they would never be bothered to do it, right? They had no interest in Eureka, it sounded horrible, and they had no friends. Whereas we approached it from the fact of, we'll be your friends and we'll take you through it. Enjoy yourself. It is a grind, but you will get cool rewards from it. And I'd say let's say at least 80% of the people that were there at the start are still here. We only lost a couple of people that really, really were against, the idea of it. Maybe it wasn't their cup of tea. But for the most part, we've kept a non-hostile approach. We've been nice and friendly and helped people along the way. The biggest problem with Eureka, when a lot of people look at it, is they instantly think of grind plus toxicity. And that's mostly because back when it was brand new and relevant, let's say back in level 70 content in Stormblood, it did unfortunately gain a reputation for itself. And that was mostly due to High Dartos and the Baldessian arsenal. However, we're attempting to clean that up a little bit and show people that the content itself is worth doing if you're with like-minded people. We can correct a lot of the problems that would ordinarily be resulting in that toxicity. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this was to try and give a phoenix down to Eureka. You might remember a few months ago now, we did a video saying that Eureka needs a phoenix down. Well, I'm probably not the answer to that in terms of the long term, but I am hoping that anything that I do manage to get people to do does encourage more people to do it. And that's why we've featured Eureka so heavily on this channel. And hopefully people aren't getting too bored of me, talking about it. But I think Eureka deserves a second chance from anybody. If you've been on the path of saying, oh, I don't like it, it's horrible, but have never tried it, then I don't know what to tell you. It's definitely something you want to try and then say you dislike. I personally think it's like drinking coffee for the first time, when you're a kid. Unless you were brought up on it and you were like, hey, do you want to try coffee for the first time? It's like, no, I don't like it, it's bitter. Well, how do you know until you've tried it? And then you fall in love with it, right? It's the same thing. Same with me, with cheese when I was a kid. I used to hate cheese and pickles and chilies and things, and now I'm absolutely in love with them thanks to my teenage times. And now I'm eating Carolina Reapers for breakfast, Well, not literally, but sometimes, right? Not every day. But so that's where we're at with that. The Eureka project is very rewarding, and it's a lot of fun to see people, die, really, and res and die and grind and experience things and have a laugh. And we have a Discord where people are chatting along that people don't have to be in, and there's fate farming parties, there's light farming parties, there's people going for bunny fates to try and get emotes and minions and mounts. It's so much fun, it really is. So I would definitely advise you take part in that. Again, the Discord is always linked in every single video that I upload to YouTube. So let's talk about some other bits and pieces. So really the only thing I've got left to talk about is Final Fantasy XIV in the direction it seems to be going, and what I think of the current situation. So a lot of people have hit Final Fantasy XIV a little bit hard recently, saying that 5.3, whilst it was a storyline patch, didn't come with a whole lot of content. So you've got to remember that prior to COVID-19, let's say, this was planned to have these features in it. I don't know if it was planned to have any more features in it, but if you were to compare it to just another patch, I feel that this has been incredibly generous. Now, technically, not everything will be everyone's cup of tea, which is why they have such a variety, but I feel that across the board, there has been plenty to keep us entertained. Now, it's no raid tier, obviously, so that's not going to be, everyone's cup of tea straight away, but we have had as much as possible that they could fill us with to keep us busy, right, during these times, which is also why we've had 3 events back to back. Now, personally, I thought the Rising event was amazing. Just as a little bit of a storyline, we get a nice housing item and a wind-up art, but awesome. You know, the storyline was cool. It didn't take more than 20 minutes or so to finish the storyline if you don't read it out like me for a YouTube video. You know, we had the Yokai Watch event, which was nerfed deliberately to try and make it so that it was a little bit more palatable for people who don't like an excessive grind. You have to remember the original Yokai Watch event required you, after the first couple of weapons, I think it was, to get 30 legendary medallions for one of the weapons. But now, obviously, it's nowhere near that. It's 10. 10 is really nothing. And of course, they've increased the drop rate on those as well. They've reduced the amount of those you need. It's a lot easier. So a lot of people go, Yokai Watch shudders inside. Oh, I remember those days, never again. But a lot of people have been like, well, this is actually really easy. You know, I've never seen so many people who would call themselves casuals say, I'm not sure about this. I persuade them to go and try it. And then within a couple of days, they're done. You know, but not from playing non-stop. I remember when the event was first out and I grinded that stuff to death. It took me forever to get all of the minions and then all of the weapons for those videos. This time around, I would imagine that if I was starting from scratch, it would take me a couple of days as well. Probably even a day. I would, if I went as hardcore as I did back then it would only take me about a day, I think. It's ludicrous how fast you can get them, but it's a good thing as well. But at the same time, it is a bit of a grind. It's something to work towards, and it was welcome, right? We got a cool mount out of it. We got 4 new minions, 4 new weapons for the respective jobs that use them. They look awesome, by the way, as you can see someone walking past with the dancer ones there in the background. I really, really like them. I think they're fantastic. They're great additions. The minions are wonderful. The text on them is brilliant. I like anything that adds to my collections. I really do. And then there's obviously the new mount, which is the Jabanyan couch, which is awesome. It really is. Regardless of what you think of the source material of Yokai Watch. I mean, me personally, I tried to watch that little anime and I just couldn't stomach it for more than 5 episodes. Each to their own, right? It might not be my cup of tea, but at least I recognize the references for the most part. But you don't really need to know that. You just need to appreciate the weapons for what they are and the minions. And I think they did a really good job. The collabs always seem to be pretty good in this game, I have to say. Talking of collabs, people have always been talking about this. The Final Fantasy XV event will be making its way back. The Regalia will be coming back. It's not going into the cash shop anytime soon. We will be having the Final Fantasy XV crossover at some point. Now, this will probably be later in the year or even next year. We have no idea at this point, but Yoshi P has mentioned this during the last live letter and in various interviews where he's been asked about this. So rest assured, you will be getting the Final Fantasy XV event if you did miss it the first time around, which is good to know. So what have we got coming up next? So we had Moonfire Fair, which was brilliant. We had a really cool dance. We had a really cool glamour set for both males and females that's dyeable. Very pleased with that. We had, obviously, the Rising event. We've had Yokai Watch. Next up is the Make It Rain event, if I remember correctly. Make It Rain should be coming sometime in October, I think, if I'm correct about that. And with Make It Rain comes apparently some new items in the Gold Saucer. Some of the items that have been talked about so far are miniature versions of the Finer Miner, the tree chopping minigame, and the other one. I can't remember what it's called. You know, next to the Minion Square, next to the Chocobo racing, there's some like little minigames and you can chop wood and stuff. Apparently you'll be getting those as housing items. So that'll be really cool if you're looking forward to adding to your collection of little minigames. And of course you can earn MGP from them, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. Which is really cool. If you want to have Finer Miner in your house, then yeah, why not? It's a perfect opportunity to do so. In collaboration with all of the other stuff that we've had there, like Super Punch Out and what was not Super Punch Out, the Punch Out minigame, and then there's a few other minigames. And hopefully something else in the Gold Saucer. I'm not sure what else they could add. It would be really nice if they added another mount. I've been sat on nearly 5 million MGP for quite some time now. I've spent a bit since then. I was over 5 million MGP just from doing Fashion Report. So I'm welcoming whatever price they want to put on an amount, to be honest. You want to charge 4 million? Go for it. You want to charge 5 million? Go for it. But give me something amazing. Give me the Cruise Chaser 5-person mount that everybody wants. That everybody's like, oh, I wonder if that'll be a mount, because they mentioned Cruise Chaser at some point. I can't remember the context, but they mentioned that that might become a mount. And at the same time, they did mention 5-player mounts. So the idea of Cruise Chaser being a 5-player mount, like in its sort of like surfboard spaceship form, that would be pretty cool. And I would love for that to be in something like the Gold Saucer and not in the cash shop. Speaking of the cash shop, we've just had the Chocobo Carriage. A lot of people are not very happy about the Chocobo Carriage being in there. All I'll say is that on the Korean version, and I think it was a Korean version, we knew about this a long time ago, and when this was first unveiled to be a concept drawing during a Korean live letter, and they mentioned that it was going to be a timed exclusive for their version of the game, and they did have full intent from the very beginning to have that as a Mog Station or a cash shop item on those regions. As a result of that, of course, literally 99.999% of the time, anything that is a Mog Station item on one region will inevitably become a Mog Station item on another country. For the most part, there are some exceptions to that on certain exclusivities, such as the Meteor Survivor jacket, which we're still not in possession of on our regions, simply because they still have that as a China exclusive, as far as I remember. It's got like a meteor symbol on this leather jacket. It's very cool. I've always wanted it, but it's never coming over by the looks of it. They also have the ability in Korea, for example, if you subscribe for 60 or 90 days, I can't remember which, they give you the Legacy Chocobo. That's obviously something that we would never see on our versions, because the Legacy Chocobo will never be given to anybody apart from those who played 1.0, or at least on that same character and the other prerequisites that are required for that. But in Korea, you can sub for, I think it's either 60 or 90 days, and you get the Legacy Chocobo as a veteran reward, basically, for that. Which is, mind-blowing, if you think about it. Especially considering there wasn't a version of the game back then on those particular regions. The other things you can purchase from they call it the prop mall on a lot of those servers like Korea. You can buy the Managarm, the mini Managarm that you get for a recruiter friend. You can just straight up purchase it. So there are very different regional rules and, obviously different companies running those different versions of 14. So it's a good guess that we might see some of this stuff. There is still I think it's called the Dark Magicians set, which has got this beautiful sort of cowled mage hat, sort of thing, like a veiled mage hat, and then these really cool robes for females, and then this weird sort of outfit for males. That's on there. That's still got to come over. There's a fair few things, including Emmett Selk's finger snap as well. We did a video on that the other day saying, look, this is on the Korean servers now, not just on China. And hopefully we get that across here as well. But a lot of this stuff will be on the Mog Station. So back to my point of people being disappointed with the Chocobo Carriage being on the Mog Station, or at least the Square Enix cash shop, whatever you want to call it, Square Enix store, Final Fantasy XIV online store. There we go. That's what they're officially calling it now, isn't it? God, it gets so complicated. Just call it the Mog Station, for goodness sake. I don't know. It was always intended to be on the cash shop, so I don't see it being possible from any other location, personally, just simply based on what they said. That doesn't mean I'm happy about it. I would love for more and more things to be acquirable through achievements and quest lines, and essentially, especially if the item itself, the mount in question, is something that you see as part of the MSQ. But then, this was my argument all along, if you remember. My argument back when Aulus, whatever his name was, in the Alamigo dungeon, was like, soul extraction. That guy, the mad professor that looks like Hojo. The guy we squished that should have been we shouldn't have killed him, and basically we should have seen him in the future. The mad professor guy, his mount, well, the thing he sits in is this like little, it's kind of like a wheelchair that hovers, which is really, really cool. this like hover unit. I think it's called a Magitech Conveyor, isn't it? Something like that. Well, the disappointing thing for me was when they gave different color variations of a Magitech Conveyor mount to PvP season rewards. Because it didn't make sense to me that you had to do a certain amount of PvP in ranking to get that mount when it was from essentially what is a PvE storyline related instance. But again, this fell on deaf ears and most people disagreed with me back when I did mention this in a video. So I don't see the difference really. I mean, if you can't be unhappy about one thing and happy about another, it's either storyline related stuff doesn't get added to the cash shop and instead gets put into the game, or it all goes into the cash shop. You know what I mean? Like, it's very rare these days that you can have something that you really want, such as, for example, like Y'shtola's Black Mage outfit, right? That was obviously going to be in a cash shop. Obviously. And I'm sure there'll be many more. There are rumors about Alphino and Alisae's outfits. You know, whether that's true or not, whether that comes to the cash shop anytime soon, I would guarantee it. Personally. Where else are you going to put it? As a reward in the game? I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, that's not to say that we're depreciating the stuff we have in the game. I just think that a lot of the stuff was designed to be on the cash shop from the very beginning, right? You have to remember how much of the cash shop actually fuels this game and many other Square Enix projects, and what they do with that money. You know, it is one of the highest sources of income for the game, and they are optional items. So yeah, it's a tricky one. But when it comes to stuff like timed exclusives that you see in Korea or China, you can guarantee that if they do come across, they will also be on a cash shop. Now, we do get surprised in-game quite regularly. We have some beautiful outfits that we can acquire in the game. You know, more recently, we've had a lot of crafted stuff, the new crafting set from Weaver. Weaver is always like the star of the show, isn't it? It's one of the specialist tokens I will never take away from my character. Weaver is always useful for making gil, and also useful for making the most fashionable things in the game. Leatherworker slightly just behind it with boots and things, but, you know, and a rebel coat and things like that. But for the most part, Weaver is just, it's amazing, isn't it? It really is. If you can craft that stuff and do treasure map dungeons each patch. But yeah, it's not to say there isn't any cool items in the game, but you can guarantee that if it's something specialized, if it's a character's outfit, it's most likely going to be on the cash shop. Now, should that be the case? I don't know. That's something you'll have to answer, because me personally, I don't really mind as long as we get access to that stuff. Remember, if it is on the cash shop, to me personally, as much as I buy it for videos, I still see it as an optional item. But of course, when it comes down to it, you know, what do I know? You guys know all of the answers, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you have to say on any of the topics today. Try and keep it civil. I'm always open to ideas and suggestions, and yeah, hopefully you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out on YouTube these days, and obviously we'll be stepping up the game a little bit as we go forward. I still have yet to create the slide again for the end of the videos. I do apologize about that. That's something that is coming back. It's just time constraints. I'm doing stuff all the time. I need to find time to put the slide together again. But I am very thankful to all the Patreons that do support this channel and make these videos possible, especially when YouTube doesn't really pay that much anymore due to AdSense rates. But thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll see you all next time. Those people bowing as well. Oh well. Enjoy being on a video, friend.